Good morning, and welcome to our first Florida Flower Trials online live. I'm Bob Cook, and I'll be serving as a moderator for today's program. Now, the Florida Flower Trials are an annual event held by FNGLA, the Florida Nursery Grower Landscape Association Floriculture Division. It's our purpose to promote the best use and value of colorful, blooming, and foliage plants in the home and the landscape. The trials are an opportunity for plant breeders around the world and our region to see how their plants look and behave in Zone 9B. We then track their performance and publish the results. These trials benefit plant breeders, growers, landscapers, designers, and consumers. We hope today's program will be educational and inspirational to anyone interested in plants. I'd like to introduce Linda Reindl, Education Director for FNGLA. And first and foremost, she's far more than a soft-spoken teacher. For months, Linda has been the tireless ramrod, contacting breeders and growers and landscapers and volunteers to focus on delivering you a beautiful, informative program. She spent hundreds of hours photographing, uploading, downloading, editing, and delivering an excellent presentation that will benefit us all. Thank you, Linda, for your work and your talents. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bob. Boy, we would have never thought that when we started the planning for this year that we would be doing this totally online. So it's truly my pleasure to be here today, and it's my pleasure to share with you all the things that we've been working on. Your phones are all muted, so if you have questions, we ask that you put your questions in the chat room, and we will give a few minutes after each of the presentations if you have any questions, and we'll try to answer the questions or provide the presenters with the questions after the webinar. The session will be recorded today and be available to you approximately 24 hours after the webinar. So we look forward to having you have that available to you afterwards, and get ready to look at a few beautiful flowers. Bob, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Linda. A little bit about me. I've been in the horticulture business since 1972 and gardening in Southwest Florida over 30 years. As a certified horticulture professional, one of the highlights of the year is today, seeing the Florida Flower Trials. My first visit to these annual bedding plant trials was in the gardens at the University of Florida up in Gainesville. This was back in the day of film cameras, and I was glad I brought along a bunch of extra rolls of the 35 millimeter slide film. It was exciting to see masses of beautiful blooming bedding plants, learn about the new varieties, and bring that information back home for others to see. But rather than you coming to these gardens today, we gladly bring the gardens to you. The trial gardens are in two locations to show us how these various plants will perform in a variety of soils and sun exposures. There are two planting dates. The first beds were planted at the end of March, and the second beds were planted at the end of April. So as you visit FNGLA's website, you'll see young plants and older plants for that reason. And we'll leave them in the ground throughout July. So we invite you to visit Harry P. Lou Gardens and the University of Florida IFAS Cooperative Extension Office in Orange County to see how these plants are performing this summer. Check the website for hours and other programs. They're both open to the public now. These plants are Florida grown. I'd like to thank these growers, these two key growers, Speedling and Brad's Bedding Plants, for their help in growing these varieties, getting them off to a good start. And we appreciate the landscaping skills of Color Burst and Ameriscape's Landscape Management Services for installing these gardens. Now, speaking of Florida grown, it's my honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, Chris Beytes. Chris is the editor of Grower Talks and Green Profit magazines and the author of the widely read e-newsletter Acres Online, with a circulation of over 23,000 people in 66 countries. Chris is a graduate of the University of Florida with a degree in ornamental horticulture and a minor in journalism. A former greenhouse owner with his wife, Lori, Chris has been with Ball Publishing since 1993. In that position, he travels the U.S. and the world to stay current on the latest horticultural production technologies, marketing, and retail trends. Highlights of his career so far includes interviewing King Alexander of the Netherlands and emceeing 5 times the International Grower of the Year Awards in Germany. Another bit to brag about, he's the only man I know who has his own bobblehead. Chris has joined us today to expand our horizons and share his thoughts on the most puzzling part of the horticulture business, the consumer. I look forward to learning about new buying patterns and what will motivate consumers to spend their money this spring and summer. Chris Beytes, welcome. The floor is yours.
Well, hey there, Bob. Hey, how's it going? What I'm doing right now is showing you that you can actually get functional with your face masks, something I've decided to do. Oh, there we go. And, if you could do a little welding and do some social distancing, why not? Hey, everybody. Glad to be here. I would much rather be in Florida, though. I am a Floridian, but I've been in Chicagoland for 27 years, so my blood is pretty thick for this cold weather. But I really wish I could have been down there with you guys doing this live. But, hey, this is the next best thing. So let's sort of dive into it now. Let me get my presentation fired up here. Normally, this kind of talk, well, it's always fun to do, but to be asked about giving an insight into consumers in a time like this, an unprecedented time in history, no small task. And I do not own a crystal ball, but I'm going to do the very best that I can. Now, I won't waste too much time. Oh, by the way, happy Free Cone Day, which is today. I believe it's the first Tuesday in May every year, except this year, because of the whole social distancing thing. So we don't get a free cone today, but otherwise next year, go for it. Actually, I heard there was sort of a riot in an ice cream shop in Cape Cod over the weekend that opened up, and people were so desperate to get in there and have ice cream, they basically had to shut the place down because it was pure mayhem. So maybe have your ice cream at home. Bob mentioned Grower Talks magazine. I've been editor of Grower Talks since 1993. And under normal circumstances, that lets me travel the world. I haven't been anywhere lately, but I've been online almost constantly talking to people. And some of that will come out in my presentation today. And my newsletter, if you don't get it, you can go to growertalks.com and click on the newsletter section and subscribe. It's basically everything I'm hearing and seeing from around the U.S. and the world on an almost daily basis. And I send it out once a week and have since 2003, I believe. Somehow every week I get there's something to say. But what are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to talk briefly about consumers in general. I mean, we could talk about consumers forever. There is no stopping. But I'll give you a few little nutshell things to think about. I'm going to talk about consumers during a pandemic. What have we learned in the last, say since late March when this thing started rolling out? What have we observed anyway? And what about consumers post-pandemic? Do I have any insights into that? Guess we'll find out. Why do I even take on the task of talking about consumers? It's a thankless task, I can tell you that, because consumers are pretty much crazy. You are consumers. I'm a consumer, and we don't know what we want today, let alone tomorrow or next year. But there's a few principles and things I've learned over my many years of doing this, especially in the last few years, is it doesn't really pay anymore to talk about demographics. That used to be the thing. You were the greatest generation. You were a baby boomer. You were Gen X, Gen Y, a millennial, Gen Z. We don't even know what's coming next. I'm probably the pandemic generation or something like that. The pans. But more and more, we've seen, and demographers have seen, and social scientists have seen that people don't tend to think in terms of demographics. And I know that gardening does not happen in terms of demographics. Gardening happens by life stage. This group of folks here are not coming into your garden center or not partaking in your landscaping services, most likely. They might wander in with their mom or something, but they've got other interests right now. And can you get them to buy a houseplant this day and age with Pinterest? Absolutely. And that might plant the seed. Hopefully when they were in kindergarten, they planted a sunflower seed in a Dixie cup And that's germinating. Now, I don't mean on the windowsill, I mean inside them. And they're going to remember that when it came up and how satisfying it was. And that's something we'll talk about, what kids are doing right now. We hope that that lasts. These slightly older kids, young adults, again, the apartment, a few houseplants, but they're not big customers, but they could be eventually. Now you start raising a family, that's a little different. You're starting to think about settling down, nesting, creating a place to live, but your money is tied up, your time's tied up, you don't have disposable income, so you're probably not big gardening consumers then. But hey, once somebody's got a home and they're settling down and a landscape and a place to garden and multiple rooms for houseplants, that's when you can really assume that these people are right to be our customers. And that could be when you're 25. It could be when you're 45. It's not an age thing. It's a lifestyle thing. So always think in terms of lifestyle when you're dealing with consumers. And there are 80-year-olds who have the same interests as 15-year-olds in this day and age, and they operate together in tribes, as they say. But now there are exceptions. Many of us on this call are exceptions for one reason or another. We got addicted to plants earlier in life. We've got a massive collection of houseplants. You're seeing the stories like in the, say the New York Times or other mainstream publications talking about the houseplant trend, and it's real. I don't know yet if it's as big as the houseplant trend of the 70s. And my wife and I came into the industry kind of right at the tail end of that in 78, 79. It was just sort of on its way out, but you could still buy macrame. We did. And you can buy it again now. So there are exceptions to that. But as I said, you want to think in terms of like-minded people. That's really where the action is. So if you're planning events or sales or anything else, think in terms of what kind of minded people you want to attract to that event, that sale that you want to present to or what have you, instead of just thinking about things like how old are they going to be. They're going to be every age. They're going to be every sex, every color, every category you can think of. Now, during a pandemic, of course, those things don't change at all. Maybe in some ways they're amplified a little bit. All you have to do, since you really can't go anywhere, is to be online pursuing your interests. It might be plants, it might be macrame, it might be anything, but you're going to be hanging with your tribe online or binge watching the kinds of things you want to watch with your family that are different than what the next family wants to watch. So I think in some ways this tribalism is going to be accentuated a little bit, amplified a bit during this. But when it comes to our product specifically, that's what you want to hear about. There's some things driving consumers that I've witnessed the last 6 or 8 weeks, and the first one is boredom. There's nothing to do. After the first week, you're tired of eating, you're tired of watching movies. And when garden centers were able to open up, it was kind of like, let's go to the garden center. You also spend a lot of time around your yard, and your house, and you're thinking, we need plants. This place is a dump. Fear is a big driving factor with our industry. I'll talk a little bit more about that. People are worried for a lot of reasons. They're worried about their job. They're worried about their health, first and foremost. This is a Home Depot line I got into a couple of weekends ago. I didn't want to stand in line for 20 minutes to get into Home Depot, but I wound up doing it, and I turned it into a photo op. And all we really wanted to do was go in the garden center and look around, but you weren't allowed into the garden center because of fear. But it's also the reason so many people were going to the garden center, and that is the fear of not having food. We'll grow our own. That'll show them. This is a good one. This is one of the big positives, and that is kids are home with parents. Now, parents may not think it's a positive, and there are some horror stories you might hear about, parents who aren't good parents on a good day Maybe, you know, not being the best parents under these bad situations, but the people I know have taken a lot of time to spend time with their kids, homeschooling, educating them. And I really think that getting outside and gardening has to become part of the curriculum for almost all of them, because eventually you run out of science experiments and art projects and things like that around the inside of the house. So hopefully there's been a lot of young kids gardening, getting introduced to gardening this year who might not have normally been introduced to that. So that's a real positive. And just the need to get outside. Now in Florida, where I grew up, you can go outside anytime. But up here in Chicagoland, when it kicked in, the pandemic kicked in and the lockdown in sort of mid-March, the weather was just starting to break. And we were just like looking out the window, the trees are popping, my daffodils are coming up. It's beautiful. And man, we want to get outside. The weather's been up and down, but boy, those first warm days, you know, got to get outside and garden. And I think more than ever, people have felt this urge to get out to nature. Biophilia, it's called, which is actually, it's the idea that humans have an innate tendency to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. And if my cat wanders in here, you'll see that happening right here. And her name's Daisy, by the way. Isn't that very horticultural? So I think this is something else that I hope is a lasting effect. This feeling of wanting to get in touch with nature. I hope it's not just something that's gonna, you know, as soon as they can get back in the mall and the movie theater and, you know, the bar, that they forget about their gardening. But this is kind of the end result, is that people have gone crazy for our industry this spring. And I can statistically prove that. Is this slide? Here's my slide. Okay. So I do a weekly weekend survey, and I've done it for 10 or 11 years now, where every Monday I send an email out to all of my readers saying, how was your weekend? In your wholesale business or your retail business, anybody can reply on a scale of 1 to 10. How was your weekend? And I've been doing it long enough, and I generally get 100 or so, 100, maybe 125 answers from around the country. In this case, May 2nd and 3rd, I think I had 46 states and a good chunk of Canada up there. So good representation. And they tell me on a scale of 1 to 10. Well, this spring started out really, really slow. Like down in the 3s and 4s. The weather was bad. Then the pandemic came in, and I start asking in late March. So right around the beginning of the pandemic was when I started asking. So people were frightened. No garden centers were open, except in the South. And interestingly, the South and Southeast has been reporting good numbers all along. But it really started out slow and scary. But it started to build. And then the last week of April was really good. 7.8 in the US and 8.2 in Canada, and nearly a third of everybody who sent me a score sent me a perfect 10. And I'm thinking, this is going to be a good spring in spite of the pandemic. Then the first weekend in May hit. The national weather forecast for that 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of May, 1, 2, 3, was clear everywhere. A little bit of rain here and there across maybe the Southeast, but hardly any. And I thought this is going to be good. Well, when I started opening up my scores, they were through the roof. It was 10, 10, 10, 10 plus, 9.5, 15. And some of the words people sent me, these are direct quotes from growers and retailers out there in response to the previous weekend. Unreal sales, biggest sales day ever. Holy, I can't say it. Absolutely incredible. Crazy. Never seen anything like it. Holy guacamole. That came out of Ohio, a friend of mine. Busiest spring weekend since we opened in 1979. Our average sale is almost double from last year. We surpassed all records by far. Every day is a Saturday. That's one to remember right there. Screaming busy. This is absolutely crazy. So that's real world. It's not data, but it's real world results of how things have been going this spring. And it's sort of all those factors that I told you about, that really seems to have people wanting to get out to garden centers. I interviewed well, let me get into this really quick. What is hot right now? Well, veggies and herbs. I mentioned I showed you a picture of big vegetable display at a local garden center. I shot that specifically for Grower Talks. Everybody there in masks, social distancing mostly, and shopping like crazy. Just this past week, 2 days ago, I talked to Mike Sutterer, who is the president and CEO of Bonnie Plants. Bonnie has 80 greenhouses in 41 states, and they sell to 49 states. They cover the garden center business better than everybody else combined in the vegetable world. And Mike told me that they've been surveying their customers since the end of March. And actually, this information I'm giving you is brand fresh. It hadn't been published anywhere, not even in Acres Online. So you're getting the scoop. He said that according to their survey, like an in-depth, careful survey of customers, they estimate 16 million new vegetable gardeners this spring. 16 million. And he says, sales-wise, he wouldn't give any numbers, but he said they've seen 5 years worth of increase in this one season. So that's how Bonnie Plant, and you go into Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Ace, loads and loads of places anywhere in except in Hawaii, and you'll see their stuff. So that's real. And the garden center I showed you the picture of with the folks shopping in masks, he is up 400%. So that's a pretty good increase right there as well. So that's what's going on now. Along with veggies and herbs, fruit trees, shrubs, anything else edible is popular, and also more sort of big landscape project materials, bigger shrubs. I think for people looking around their garden saying, we could use a hedge here. Let's put in a bed we've been talking about. There's not much else to do. You can't, all that time you used to spend on the weekend or during the week taking kids to and from practice or going shopping or going out to eat or what have you. Can't do that yet. And so our industry has been sort of uniquely positioned to benefit, with a few exceptions. Pennsylvania, I think, is maybe still having some challenges getting garden centers opened. A few other areas, Ontario is just opening up right now. They were locked down pretty hard. So it's been a shame to see garden centers not being able to take advantage of this boom that we've been having right now. So really there are a lot of challenges to operating in this climate, and the businesses, this applies to growers, landscapers, retailers, pretty much everybody. The challenge is how effectively you can provide a safe environment for your customers and for your workers. And most of the garden centers I've been to have done a really good job very quickly of providing traffic flow, of managing cart sanitation, increasing the number of registers to spread things out. You got to get a little bit regressive with your signage, as it's sometimes called. Now, maybe you could be a little friendlier than "no children or dogs." They may leave that sign up all the time, some garden center owners. But but it's a shame. One of my editors went to a garden center with his daughter, who's 11 or 12, and a nice kid, very well behaved, and they wouldn't let her in, so he left. He was there to shop with his daughter, to shop for their vegetables. So maybe it was a little bit of a shame that was the rule. Some other garden center got the business. So I think that if you're in business right now and you're taking care of customers, you have an opportunity, unique opportunity to either really impress those customers or really, pardon my French, piss them off. And maybe you've had some experience at a retailer where they made it so difficult to get inside and shop with the rules and regulations that everybody's got to deal with, that you just like, I don't want to go back. I'm not even going to buy your online stuff. I'll deal with somebody else. And certainly online and curbside pickup is a thing. And we're going to talk about that in a second as well here. How am I doing on my time? Still, better tighten it up here. But, providing good checkout lines like that, this is all new stuff that Chris Beytes popped up in over a 10-day period. The screens, the signage, the floor markings, the 6-foot spacing things. Fascinatingly, he said, and actually one of the cashiers told me, this system works so much more smoothly than their old system, they're going to keep it. maybe minus some of the, signs and screens and stuff, but the traffic flow they invented for getting people in and out more smoothly and more, on a more spacious basis has worked really well. So it's been a plus for them. This is what some growers are having to do as well. Social distancing, barricades, but on a transplant line, sanitation, face masks, fewer people working in certain areas. So this is all things that everybody has had to do. And I think these are things that are going to kind of be with us for a while. Now, will this last? That's one of the keys. I mean, it's booming right now. I'm starting to get the sales results in for this past weekend. They're still really strong in most areas. Where they aren't strong is where the weather has been bad. So far, I'm still hearing that every day is a Saturday. This is not slowing down yet. And the loosening of restrictions nationwide is happening, but it's kind of happening slowly, more slowly in certain areas where restaurants are, not yet open or only open, for half the number of people. Consumers are still scared. There's still fear out there about, I don't think I want to go to a movie. There's certainly going to be no sports games to go to. So gardening is still going to be one of those things that's safe and easy, and you can do it around your own home. So I think it's still going to stay strong with every day being a Saturday. But that competition is coming back, and people are going to be ready to go out to eat, ready to go to the movies, ready to go to the mall. And we'll see that happening. So take advantage of it while we can. But one other factor that's interesting that everybody has told me is that weather has not been as much as a factor as it might normally be. So if it's kind of rainy or drizzly or cold, people are still shopping in the garden centers. That's how desperately they want our product right now. Whereas in a normal season, they'd say, we'll go next time. But I think they're afraid there will be no more tomatoes if they wait till next time. That's not to say that weather is not still our biggest enemy. And where I've gotten scores from this past weekend that are low scores, it's because it was cold and rainy, which is a shame on Mother's Day. But even here in Chicagoland, it was perfect on Friday and Saturday, and it was cold and drizzly on Sunday, and that's going to drop the scores and drop the shopping. Now, one of the things I think will be very helpful for everyone out there is to make sure all these 16 million new vegetable gardeners are successful. I've heard stories that people are buying flats of tomatoes, like 36 plants or something like that. Flats of chives, for Pete's sake, when you need 4 tomato plants and 1 pack of chives. So there's going to be a lot of produce out there. So getting their garden through the summer, through the drought and the heat in Florida, then what do you do with all the produce you've grown? That's going to be a way to help people be successful. One of the things Bonnie is doing is they're partnering with a food bank organization to help set up consumers to donate their excess produce to local food banks. So maybe that's something you guys can work on as well. I think that's a really good idea as well. Now, what about post-pandemic? This whole mask and sanitation and social distancing is going to be with us for quite a while, I think. I don't see it going away anytime soon. Certainly, I'm 45 miles from Chicago, which is not a hotbed anymore, but it's still, much more likely to be one. So maybe I'll be in a tighter lockdown than folks out in the burbs or the rural areas will be, or in states that don't have the giant population like a Chicago or a New York City. But it's going to be there. So really work to fine tune it. Don't just deal with it or suck it up thinking, maybe in a month or two we can give this up. Figure it out. We could be doing this for 6 months or a year. You don't know. So fine tune it. Make sure your employees are comfortable and having fun. And make sure that your customers are able to get in and out of your business or deal with your landscape business or whatever it is as easily and smoothly as possible. Make it. And you got to remember, tensions are high right now. People are getting frustrated. They're showing up on courthouse steps with AR-15s. You don't want them on your step that way. So really be extra patient with your customers because they're under a lot of stress just like you are. Help them have a good experience with your business, whatever your business may be. This has been very interesting to see that those businesses who've been able to set up online sales and curbside pickup have done very well, and customers are now spoiled by this. Probably some of you are. I know plenty of people who now are like, I'm getting my groceries by Peapod all the time now, or doing I'm just phoning it in or emailing it in or whatever, and then just driving and picking it up. I'm not going in the store again, especially with all those sick people in there. So, in fact, I heard from a Swiss retailer, a friend of mine who years ago thought about doing an online business, said, no, I'm not going to invest in it. It's too expensive. And then suddenly in this pandemic, the only way to sell in Switzerland was online, and he wasn't prepared for it. So he had to cobble something together, and he realized an online selling system is not a luxury. It could be a necessity. So think about that as well. And as I say, it could be protection against the next disaster. Next time something big happens, and of course, Floridians are used to disasters with hurricanes and things, but having alternative sales channels and distribution channels could be handy. So think about that. And one other thing is think about being diversified. If you have all your eggs in one basket and that basket comes down with a virus, you could be in trouble. Somebody told me they know a business that only does fundraisers for Easter and Mother's Day. That's like, 95% of their business. Well, that all kind of went away. So that's a tough position to be on. Lastly, I'm wrapping up, Bob, don't worry. Consumers still want 4 things. And think about it. You are consumers. This is what you and everyone wants. They want convenience. They want to get what they want and kind of get in and out with as few problems as possible. And that's why the rise in online sales. What could be easier, right? But conversely, they want experience. It's not just, they don't want to buy everything on Amazon. There's times you want to go to a store and browse and get entertained and learn things and get some sights and smells. And that's where our product really comes in. They want that experience. They want inspiration. Something that, you can find online through Pinterest and places like that. But there's nothing like getting it in the flesh, so to speak. And they want to be successful. They want help translating that inspiration into a success out in their own yard. So those are all things that we can do for them, regardless, in spite of the pandemic. In fact, maybe more so with all these new gardeners coming out. Those are the 4 things that folks want. Lastly, I always wrap up here. As I said, you guys are uniquely positioned to have dealt with a pandemic. A virus is a little tiny thing, right? It's like that big. It's small. You guys are used to dealing with things like this, wiping you out, and you have to rebuild or go without sales for a couple of months. So my Floridians, my people, are uniquely prepared to deal with a disaster like this, and I'm proud of you for doing it. And finally, agricultural folks, which we all are, we can joke about disasters. And this is a sign from Vermont that somebody sent me that I really appreciated. So what would it be for Florida? I don't know. A small alligator, perhaps. Anyway, have fun with that. And Bob, that's all I've got. Don't know if we have time for questions or not, or if any have come in through the chat area, but
we do. Chris, thank you very much. Now, viewers, on the right side of your screen, we see settings, attendees, and chat. We have over 100 people viewing this right now, so sorry we can't open up the microphones to listen to you. But if you have any questions or comments about our presenter or the program, feel free to enter any information on the right, and we'll read those and respond to those. Also, Chris, could you include a web address or an email address on there? Okay, you have 66,000 people on your list right now, but let's
give her who's counting, yeah.
So if people are not receiving your email now, that they would probably appreciate that.
Right. I should have put a last slide up, but if you go to growertalks.com, you can find my newsletter. Go to the little thing that looks like a hamburger. They call that a hamburger, that little menu bar, and click on it. Click on newsletters, and mine is called Acres Online. There's 8 others, I think, that are really good with some really knowledgeable, experienced. 2 of them are PhDs, for Pete's sake. Newsletter editors provide great insights, and as sort of as a preview of what's coming next on the agenda, new variety information. You're going to get a bunch of it here, and what you're going to hear here and some more you can find at our website, springtrials.com. Just go to springtrials.com. There's a link to to the coverage that we did of the non-existent spring trials. They didn't happen, but we made them happen anyway. And I talked to most of the people you're going to be talking to later on here about their new varieties. And so if you want to know what should I be growing next year, at least in the world of annuals and perennials, go to springtrials.com and you can click on the link to our 6 days of or 7 days of newsletter coverage, and also all the videos that we produced in conjunction with the breeding companies to show you as much of the new stuff as we possibly could. I don't think you're going to find that anyplace else.
Very good. Thank you. And you're absolutely right. My 19-year-old son is not on Facebook, and he does not shop in garden centers. But when I go to Facebook, by all means, it is jam-packed with newbies. Just recently, wherever you are, invariably there's a regional gardening group on Facebook and other social media, and is packed with the first line is, "I'm new at this, and here's a photograph of my beans. What's wrong with this?" And those of us who sell plants, by all means, every time you sell a plant is an invitation to a relationship. As soon as you plant out the beans or the trees or the shrubs, troubles happen. It's just natural. And when people need information, often they go to the internet and it's overload. Sometimes they get weird advice. So if you are in a garden center, nursery, landscaper, you need to be on social media and link to some of these groups so they get current, correct information, and let them know, okay, there is value in using coffee grounds and eggshells in fertilizing, but your beans and your peas may need something else. So yeah, by all means, we need to be connected to all these newbies so we can give them current, correct information.
I hope the newbies are not being sold, and don't take this the wrong way, but I hope they're not being sold heirloom varieties and an all organic plan. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but really they should be being sold a big pot with good potting soil in it and a cherry tomato. That's how they're going to be successful.
And
you move on to the heirlooms next year.
So we have time for one quick question, and one of the questions for Chris was, how is color selling according to your retail surveys? Can you share?
Somebody named Linda. I wonder who that is. Yeah. But no, actually, everything is selling. There is, yes, vegetables are selling extra hot, but there is not a category that isn't selling right now. Garden centers, one wrote that they gave this last weekend a 9. They would have given it a 10, but they ran out of product. They're just, and now they're worried that their growers are going to run out of product. And there was a short window, there's about a 2-week window where growers back in kind of late March were thinking, we're going to cut back a little bit because this looks bad. And then I think a week later, they're scrambling to place orders with Ball and all their brokers out there because they realize, wait a minute, this is not going to be bad. So I think we're going to see shortages this year. But as far as I could tell, everything is selling.
Good.
We have a local grower who specializes in Florida native plants. They do a fantastic job. But one day, 3 customers in a row came in and asked, where are your fruit trees? Well, they had enough room to add those to it. So they're definitely responding to the market you're talking about. Is they specialize, but if the market asks for something, they brought it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not easy. I'm not saying there aren't parts of the country that have had it tougher than others, whether it's weather, just the market someone happens to be selling to. So I don't want to imply that every grower and every retailer is sending me 10s out there. I wish it were that good, but then again, it's never like that. There's always parts of the country that just get inundated with rain all through the key weekends of May, and they have to move on and go till next year. And I think things are going to be just like that. But it sure is better than it looked like it was going to be 6 weeks ago. That's the bottom line, I think.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Another question is this being recorded? Certainly. This is being recorded. And we understand we have some people that are fairly busy and they can't stay and watch the entire program. So we're seizing it for you. And we'll post it online. So you can review what Chris has discussed, as well as take a look at the new introductions we're about to bring in. Linda, are we ready for some reader showcases?
We are, so
Fantastic.
take it away.
All right, let me talk a little bit about this. It's built around tradition. Now, the Breeder Showcase is a vital part of the Florida Flower Trials program. Each company has pre-recorded the presentation so you can spend more time getting detailed information about each variety on our website. When you go to FNGLA, you'll see 9 squares there. Click on each square, and they have about 9 to 10 minutes. These people showing their plants and giving you the details of the features and benefits of these plants. We've invited those same breeders to come here today live to showcase just a few of those plants and show you some of the introductions and the improvements. Here they are live to offer insights on the performance of varieties in our Central Florida trials. They'll be highlighting some of the standouts from the trial gardens, or maybe they'll just tease us with a sneak peek at a plant fresh from the breeder's bench. Each company will have a few minutes of stage time to share the new concepts. And oh, by the way, we have dress code with this webinar. So be assured that all of our presenters are wearing pants. Shoes are optional. So to get the maximum benefit of the next session, let me offer a few suggestions. Number 1, silence your cell phone. Number 2, maximize your screen to take in the best view of these plants. And number 3, take notes. There are a lot of new introductions and ideas you might need to capture right now. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, Benari. Scott Haynes is the area sales manager for Benari. He works with growers, brokers, retailers, and trial garden managers in the Southeast to assist with sales, product information, and technical support on behalf of Benari. Scott, are you there?
Yes.
Very
Can
good.
you hear me okay, Bob?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Excellent.
Welcome.
Well, thank you, Bob, and Chris, you two, for that very interesting and encouraging tidbit of market insights there. Definitely good to hear some encouraging news during all that we're going through. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of our most important products in our assortment, and that is our big begonias. This is a staple item for Benari and a very important product in the industry. We've been working hard at breeding big begonias, and we have some new and improved colors for you this year. Those are all featured in the FNGLA gardens here. And even though the plants are a little small, I think you'll get to see that great big performance the series is known for as the season goes on. So with that said, we'll jump in and take a look. Hopefully these slides will advance okay. This is a glimpse at the trial garden here, showing some of the probably larger plants, and then we get to our big begonias, these tiny little plants that just got planted. That is not what you're going to get for the entire season, because as soon as these things take off and start going, you will get unbelievable garden performance from the big begonias. So I'm going to kind of skip through some of these. You see this new white big begonia. This is a really exciting, important new color for the series. For years, everyone had asked us as a breeder, can you come up with a white interspecific begonia with this amazing garden performance the big series is known for? And time and time again, we thought we had the answer, but had to keep going back to the drawing board until we got it right. And we do feel we've created an excellent variety with this big green leaf white that lives up to the big name. Here's some other plants that were just planted. These were planted, I believe, from quartz or maybe 4.5-inch pots. Typically, you would have a little bit larger plant size going into the landscape there, but these will do just fine starting that small and will really take off. The photo here kind of shows a mature habit size in a pot with that green leaf white right in the middle. All of the different colors in the series, there's 8 colors total, 4 green leaf, 4 bronze leaf. They're all going to match perfectly in habit, flower timing, and just size through production and out in the landscape for the consumer. We do have the widest color range of this interspecific, garden begonia. And with that, we've added a few, as I mentioned. The green leaf white I've mentioned today, but we also added the deep rose bronze leaf, which is a really nice deep rose color on that dark contrasting leaf. And that's separate from our standard bronze leaf rose, which is not quite as deep of a color. You might not grow both, but you can tell them apart. So again, that's 8 colors in the series. Great performance and a nice broad color range. With bigs, you're going to get a superior branched plant, an excellent habit that matches color to color, and just that phenomenal performance. This is really the epitome of a plant that is perfect for these newbie gardeners, as we were talking about, to take home and try for their first time, because they're going to find success with this product. Consumers can count on having a great product that's going to perform no matter where they plant it. They can plant it in the brightest, sunniest spot in their yard or the deepest shade and still get phenomenal results that last all season long. So we're really proud of the big series. We're going to keep breeding and adding more colors. And we just invite those of you who haven't tried it yet to give the big series a try. I think you'll be really pleased. And as you watch them through the summer in the FNGLA trials, I think it'll be a great testament to the performance of this series. So that's all I've got. If there are any questions now, I'd be happy to take those.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. And again, when people go to our website, they can click on the breeder trials, and there's much better photographs of these plants.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Much better photographs, later stage. So feel free to visit the website and click on the binary square.
I'm not sure if it froze up, but I'm going to pass the mic on now.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Now, we were going to have classic caladiums. Linda, were they unable to connect today?
Yes, they were having some technical difficulties, so we are going to try to get them back on for maybe an alternative webinar and feature some of their products. But
So we'll move along to Danziger?
Yep.
Very good. All right, the next breeder, Danziger Dan, is Lisa Heredia. She's the marketing and key accounts for North America. And she's in charge of marketing activities for the North America market, as well as account manager for some of their key business partners and retail connected growers. So with Danziger, welcome, Lisa.
Hello, thank you, Bob. Well, I'd like to say thanks to the entire FNGLA organization, as well as Chris and Bob for having me on today. I feel like Chris left the state of Florida as I was coming in, because I've actually been here 25 years. So I think we just swapped places. I feel like we're all connected together in that, I worked for the University of Florida when I first moved here on the trials, and I live right down the street from Orlando. I'm over here on Sarasota County. The Danziger genetics are unique, and what I love about Danziger product for Florida is that it is bred in Israel, which is also very hot, and certain times of the year has a lot of humidity. So we are, all of our breeding is uniquely suited for Florida and does very well here. So the first one I'd like to talk about is the Angelonia. We have not only bred for really interesting and unique flowers, but we always focus first on the habit of the plant. So you'll notice with Danziger breeding, we try to make sure we have a really nice sturdy habit first, and then we go for the colors and the flowers and the blooms. So what you're looking at here are the Alonia Big series, and these are a little bit more upright and have a little bit longer flowers. They're not quite in their full glory yet, as you can see, but you can see they do have a nice roundy moundy habit, and they're getting some nice flower spikes. What you're looking at here on the left is the bicolor pink, and on the right is bicolor purple. They're going to be really nice when they finish out. And then over here on the left is the Alonia, the regular size Alonia, which you can see has a little bit smaller stature. But all of the Alonias are really nice because they will bloom early. And what that means for Florida is that you can get these to flower up and make a nice court for peak selling season, which means early in the spring, but it will continue to gain size in the garden. So you've got good performance for the greenhouse, you've got a nice little package at retail, and then you also have good garden performance. Then over here on the right, you can see probably one of my favorite new introductions this year, and this is Vanessa Verbena. We have quite a few colors in the line, but this one is my favorite, and it's a bicolor. Let's see if you've got a close-up of it. There's some more Angelonias. I think we have a really pretty, yeah, here's the close-up. Bicolor indigo, and you can see it's got a nice white and purple kind of pattern on it. As they mature, the white ring will become a little more pronounced, and you have a really beautiful bicolor plant. The nice thing about Vanessa is that we started from scratch with this series and really did a hard selection for powdery mildew tolerance and bloom cycling. So this series has only been out a few years, and we're trying to reinvent the category because Verbena was struggling as a category in the marketplace because of all the issues with powdery mildew and bloom cycling. So we have very strong powdery mildew tolerance, and these will stay in color throughout the heat of the summer. So this is bicolor indigo. I encourage you to take a look at our full line. They do make a beautiful blanket, and they have extremely high garden performance. I think that's it for me. Yep. Are there any questions?
I'll tell you what, we walked the trials last week. When I say we, I took my wife Cheryl with me. One of the 1,000 things I love about her is she's not a gardener. She's a consumer. So we in the business, we appreciate improvements like better basal branching and disease resistance, garden performance, etc., etc. The consumers, they like pretty plants. By all means, when she saw, I mean, I recommend people take notes. When she saw bicolor indigo, she says, "What's that?" That's a reaction we love out of consumers. She didn't care if it was an annual or perennial or the improvements. It was pretty. And if it performs here, it is certainly a winner. So good move.
Thank you.
Any questions? If not, we'll continue rolling along. Thank you, Lisa. Now we can't hear you. You might need to unmute.
Does that work?
There you go. Very good.
Okay, now we're on track.
Nice.
Okay, so we have I'm sorry?
You're good to go.
Fun with virtual meetings.
We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
The first series that we see here is the First Flame series. From Pan American Seed. It is a series that's been specifically bred for the landscape trade, so it can stand up to the temperatures in Florida.
I'm not sure what you're hearing, but we can hear you loud and clear. You're good to go. Let me move on to some of the other. I've got this perpetual loop going on, so it's kind of confusion. One of the next item up is our Beacon and Patience, which is arguably one of the largest products that we've introduced over this past year for ball. And it's one of a couple of
varieties that have been introduced in this past year to deal with the impatiens downy mildew problem. So that's it's a real problem solver for most of the landscape trade, particularly in Florida. So there's 6 colors for the series, including a red and white mix, which is specifically important for Florida. The next product up beyond this is the Vinca series, our Valiant Vinca, which is a series that has a higher level of disease tolerance than some of the other varieties that are out there. 7 colors in a mix on that. The next item after that, if you can see it here, let me zoom over to this next slide. A really interesting Celosia series that is grown specifically just for its foliage color. So we have 2 colors, one called Lizard Leaf and one called Gecko Green. The red colored leaf will intensify in the sun and shade and act, if you want to think of it as like a warm season coleus, that would be a really good way to think about this. So this will be an interesting new Celosia that is specifically for its foliage color. The last couple of items here that are sort of interesting, there's a brand new update to the Marvel series marigold, which gets very tall in the landscape. So landscapers are oftentimes looking for larger flowers, brighter colors, certainly orange and yellows that stand up to the sun of Florida. That's a particularly good item for us, and it's day neutral. So it'll flower for the growers coming into the season that you would need it in. The last item that's really kind of a one-off, but a very interesting plant, is a new salvia series. It's a Salvia canariensis called Lancelot. Again, these trials were planted late. They weren't planted until the end of April. But over the course of the summer, that plant's going to get to be about 32 to 36 inches in the Florida environment. And it takes hot sun. It's fairly drought tolerant, and it's a very, very good pollinator plant. So that's going to be a good one for both consumers and for the landscape in terms of just an overall tough plant for the landscape. So that's what we had for today. If there were any questions that I might be able to answer.
Well, Jeff, for sure, as we walk through the gardens, that purple first flame Celosia stood out. That's probably the most purple Celosia I've ever seen. So if someone's looking for a clear purple color, that's a great idea. And I'm glad you included the Lancelot, because people are looking for different colors of foliage. So for salvia, they have silver leaves, and when you look closely, it's almost furry. For the foliage plant, it's a great addition. But it gets about knee-high and a pollinator attractor, so it's a great new addition to almost any flower bed.
That's great. Yep.
Very good. Thank you, kind of, Jeff. All right, Linda, we're able to bring on, who's our next presenter now?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next presenter, were we able to get Joe's sound working yet? Do we have Mark on the line?
Yes, you do. Can you hear me okay?
All right.
All right.
Proceed. Mark Sagan, Global Manager with Cicada. Welcome.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Good to be here. I would much prefer, of course, being at the trial site with you, but I guess this is the next best thing, considering what we're going through. So, a handful of slides just to kind of highlight a few of the key new introductions Cicada has for 2021. The first 3 pictures selected for this highlight, there are our new Virtuosa Vinca. And for me, what quickly jumps out in this picture is the robust plant habit. Now, this is a F1 hybrid, so along with the hybrid vigor, you're seeing the plants are well branched, uniform in size, feature nice, large, vibrant flowers. So that's a nice display there. The second slide, on the left, you can see obvious signs of a problem developing. Of course, not an ideal situation for promoting a new variety, but it appears to be maybe a low spot, might be impacting this bed. The displaced mulch you can see near the center is kind of a telltale sign, but in any case, this is evidence for a disease maybe having an impact, and really it reinforces the critical need to effectively amend the soil to maximize aeration and drainage. But I know there are several other vinca lines in this year's trial. And so this should provide really just a good opportunity to compare the plant vigor, the branching, the flower power behind our new Virtuosa vinca series. The next slide, of course, highlights our newer sun patients. I know most of you are already well versed in the proven performance sun patients offer in Florida. Really, their ability to outperform all other New Guineas and New Guinea hybrids is directly linked to their genetic background and their plant structure. You start with, they have a much more aggressive root system. You can visually see stronger stems and a thicker leaf and thicker flower petals. So these features allow sun patients unsurpassed garden performance under the most stressful conditions, whether it's in full sun or part shade conditions. Now, the left picture here highlights two of our newer vigorous sun patients, Vigorous Orange Improved and Lavender Splash. We don't normally promote the more vigorous series in Florida, but I want to illustrate that they still may have a place for plantings where you're really looking for more massive color blocks. The new vigorous breeding features much more improved or better branching than the original sun patients many of you started off with a number of years ago. So again, I encourage, watch how these vigorous develop and perform over the course of the summer, and hopefully people will be able to see these two in comparison to our compact varieties in real life. Slide 5 illustrates two of our newest sun patients for 2021, Compact Hot Pink and Rose Glow. Both of these varieties feature well-branched mounting habits, good bloom coverage, self-cleaning, but the real trial of sun patients comes with increased temperatures. And you'll see these begin to really separate themselves as we go forward. Now, although sun patients have been on the market now for 14 years, we continue to raise the bar. And you will witness these two varieties, even from our earlier genetics, they will show better heat tolerance and more resistance to wilting as the summer progresses. So I'm excited to see the next generation of sun patients being developed here. And then finally, we've got a few pictures of our Super Cal Premium petunias. Now, I recognize that in Florida, many gardeners plant petunias late in the fall because of the heat stress that quickly is incurred in May and June. And while fall planting of Super Cal will work just fine, they're unique intergeneric cross. These are part petunia, part calibrachoa. And so that unique cross offers the best in class when it comes to heat tolerance. This heat tolerance led one grower in Florida to tell me he considers this their summer petunia. And so that's saying something for petunias in Florida. The other feature to look for is their rain tolerance. Super Cal, the flowers remain open during the light rain and are very quickly to rebound after a very heavy downpour. So it's unique breeding And like sun patients, I think you'll see the difference in their garden performance. So please watch closely the development and how SuperCal performs in the trial gardens. I know it's a quick overview, but in our presentation, again, go to cicadaornamentals.com for more information and some cultural guidance. But any other questions?
And by all means, that your SuperCal, do you pronounce it caramel or caramel yellow?
Actually, caramel yellow.
Caramel, okay.
Yeah, one of them is actually misspelled. It's CARAMEL, but caramel yellow. Yeah.
Be specific, but that color is so unique. It's like an antique gold. I've never seen that color in a petunia before, so that really fills a niche for a unique color.
Especially in the fall, Bob. That's actually a unique color, as you said, and you know it could be utilized as a fall planting. So.
Now, is it a long day, short day, or day neutral plant?
We're close to a short day. In fact, that's the thing with the SuperCal premiums. We want them all to be blooming in 10.5 hours or less. And so that variety was naturally blooming in Florida in 10.5 hours. So,
very good.
Yep.
Right. Thank you, Pam.
All right.
Okay, Linda, we hear you talking over there. You're talking to our next presenter.
A minute. Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Sorry
Can you
about that. Was Heather joining us. We have Heather Will Brown instead of Joe Messer, so we can go back to Hem Genetics. And thanks, Mark. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
All right, Heather Will Brown with Hem Genetics. Welcome, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing about your plants. Go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Can you, I don't know if you can see me or not, can you?
Let me see.
No, maybe not.
There we go.
You can see some plants.
Oh, you know what? I've got to reverse that. I don't want to sound like an idiot. How do I reverse that picture?
Your slide is up anyway.
My slides are up. I hope everyone enjoys the picture of the pencils behind my computer. All right. I'm going to take you for a little whirlwind tour here of some of the products we'd like to showcase for Hem Genetics. Great. And in front of you, you're going to see our Vinca Solar Avalanche Cherry Dazzling Eye, and you're going to see Solar Avalanche Apricot to the right with the kind of pale flower on it. These plants in the next couple months are going to completely cover that bed. And I would like to point out the strength of the Solar Avalanche Apricot, because you can already see it's really kind of vigorous compared to its brother right now. But don't be surprised when that Cherry Dazzling Eye takes over, and they are equally beautiful all summer long. And you're going to love this series because it stays low growing. In the background, you're going to see some fabulous celosia, and we're very proud of the Arabona, which is the red celosia with the kind of bronze leaves. That'll last all summer. It's dense. Here in Florida, it's taken a long time to get celosias that will run through the whole summer, and that's one of them. And then to each side of that are some of our experimental celosia, and I mean, you're looking at the proof right there. You can tell that they're going to be excellent also. Right? Don't be fooled by how the little Cosmos Casanova look in this picture. If you put these in a little bit earlier in the spring, you feed them, this is going to be a great early spring crop. We were mentioning these early spring crops. And it's a beautiful wildflower look. You can use them in containers. You can plant a mass of them, and everybody loves wildflowers. The Lupin Lupini comes in 3 shades. You can see them right here. It's the blue, the white, and the pink. They're very distinct colors and really, really sturdy plants. And lupine, whatever you want to, how you want to pronounce it, is a native to Florida. And I think these little guys will do great if you start them early and you get first year flowering. So I don't think you're going to go wrong if you can make this a nice spring crop. Grow them dry. There's a few more pictures of the celosia we've kind of already talked about in the last slide. And again, we have our solar avalanche vinca, and just give them a little bit of time, give them some heat and humidity, and you're going to find they'll be thriving for you. This, to the left, you're going to see the cherry dazzling eye, and that can be spectacular in a hanging basket. All of them can, but I'm especially fond of this cherry dazzling eye. So from him to headaches, we hope we gave you a whirlwind tour, and maybe I'll get to see you next time.
Certainly, I thank you. And for sure, you have hundreds of plants to show. We only had a few minutes to take a look at these. But on the Breeders' Showcase, when people click on the square, you'll get a longer presentation. But you have this new basil, purple ball. What a neat idea. For sure, floriculture includes foliage colors. We already talked about the trend for people using herbs. So it doesn't have to be in a vegetable garden. If someone's looking for a purple leafed plant, you guys have a really nice basil.
Oh, you hit it right on the head. And if you watch the video that Joe and I made, you'll see that showcase there. But again, for the color, because people get a little bit bored with the green, and you put that in with some herbs, and it just makes everything pop.
Mm-hmm. And you teased us with those experimental celosias. How do you pronounce that? Tokaj experimental?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. You saw me slip right over those names, didn't you?
Well, I had to look closer to find and write it down, but whatever you want to call it, it's experimental, so it probably won't be available for a year or two. So you definitely have a winner there.
I think it was. It looks like Tokaj Beekaver. Does that look familiar? Beekaver and Arabica. Maybe we'll get some simpler names by the time they come out, right?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's a beautiful plant. So it's nice to see something new on the market that's working well here. So good job on that introduction.
And I think you have had probably the same experience with celosia, because they didn't last, and they were just a flash in the pan. And these get bigger and bigger and fuller.
Nice. Good job. Heather, we thank you kindly, and glad you're finally able to get through to us and show us some of your plants.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, Linda, do we have another presenter lined up?
Hi, can you see me all right and hear me all right?
Let me see.
There we go. That's Delilah.
Yeah, so is it Suntory's turn?
Yes, ma'am. Delilah Onofre, welcome. And tell us about the new plants from Suntory.
All right. Well, so thank you so much for putting this on today. It's my first time in such a format, so this is really cool, a true virtual conference. So for Suntory, we're focusing on our Swarikwae catharanthus, which are just so happy in Florida, and also our 2 lines of roses that are very heat and humidity tolerant and disease resistant. For years, you've seen the sun rosas, which are the more compact landscape rose, and now we also have the brindabellas, which are the full-sized, gorgeous, fragrant, like heirloom looking but modern performance. Okay, so here you see the Swarikwae catharanthus. These are very compact. I call them Vinca's little sister. They're micro bloomers, just loaded with flowers, and keep a tight mounded habit all through the summer. I mean, these will still look amazing in October, and maybe even longer here. I've heard in parts of Florida, they come back and pretty much naturalize. So we are up to 8 colors in the Swarikwae right now. So here you can see the white peppermint, the white with the red eye, the red shades. It's like a scarlet red with a red eye. And above there is the light purple with the dark eye. It's a light pinkish purple. And then the darker purple is the lavender. And then at the bottom is the blueberry kiss, which is a denim blue with a dark purple center. Very nice multi-tonal blue and purple shades with the blueberry kiss. So it's the dark center, that's the kiss. So 8 colors total, 6 in these beds. And so this is one of our hottest growing brands, literally, and it just loves summer, loves heat and humidity. So we've got both Brindabella and the Sun Roses. The larger light colored one is Dawn, which the color is influenced by temperature. So in cooler temps, it's more of a antique peachy apricot color, but it gets lighter as temperatures heat up. In the bottom, it's Sun Rosa Orange Delight, which you get multicolors like you would see in some of the hybrid teas that change colors. And above that, that appears to be the Brindabella Purple Prince, which is the top seller and most popular. And there's a close-up of the Purple Prince, a real nice, rich magenta purple color. And you can see the body and the foliage and the leaves, very resistant to black spot and powdery mildew. So in addition to doing well in Florida, and these are on their own roots, they're not grafted, we've also have some evaluations that show the cold hardiness, all the way up to zone 4. So since the Brindabella was bred in Australia, we didn't really know for sure on the cold tolerance. So hot and cold. And here's more of the Sun Rosa. The Yellow Delight replaces the yellow we had before, a richer, more vibrant yellow. It's a sport of the Orange Delight. And the Fragrant Pink has the largest flowers in the Sun Rosa series. And that wraps up what we got in the beds for Suntory.
Very good. Thank you, Delilah. Melanie, you hit on something, fragrance.
Yes.
Something we can't appreciate with the screen between us. But fragrance is just one of those senses that we definitely need to tap into. If somebody's really going to enjoy a garden, it's the sights and the sounds and the smells of gardening that really turn people on. So it's great that breeder came up with emphasizing bringing back the sweet scent of roses in those Brindabellas.
Yeah, he was determined. He's a plant pathologist by trade, and is famous for his rose gardens in Australia. And he's like, I want this rose to smell like a rose, and look like a rose. So that's what his motivation was.
Good move. We thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Linda, do we have any other breeders lined up yet?
We have our final breeder. It's Harvey Lang, and he will be with Syngenta.
Very good. Dr. Harvey Lang, welcome to the show. We look forward to hearing from you and seeing your plants. Go right ahead.
Bob, excuse me, Bob, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about several seed product lines that many of which we've included in the gardens this year. And all of these will do great in Florida. I specifically picked those that really would get through the heat of late spring and into the summer of Florida. And I'll just, as Bob mentioned, recommend that you go to the FNGLA website and review our breeder presentation. There you'll see complete overviews of all these products I'm going to show you today. And a lot of those include a lot of great shots of the whole South and Southeast, including a lot of garden and trial sites in Florida. So let's talk and see what's in the garden here. This is the shot from the Harry P. Lou Gardens, and I'm going to keep it on this slide for a while because it kind of gives a little overview of a spattering of all the things I want to talk about and that we've entered into the gardens. So you'll see in the middle little white vinca, but basically that's a new color in our Cora XDR vinca. And XDR stands for extreme disease resistance. I talked about those last year. It was a brand new series with this new apricot color added. We have 11 colors in a mix. And this is all about disease resistance for Aerophytoptera in Florida. These are F1 hybrids, so they put on a nice big plant and a big flower. Right in behind it, toward the back, right next to that vinca, the white in the middle, is the Aymara. And in this particular case, I included the red star kind of a neat novelty color. But I talked about the Aymara XDR. Again, this is bred specifically for disease resistance. So you have Aymara and also the Beacon, which you have two good series out there for downy mildew resistance. And we couldn't get the seed in for the trials to put them in the garden, but the new thing with Aymara is that we have 9 colors, but the new portion this year is that we have 5 new color mixes. Last year we had 1 mix with the original series, and now we have 5 new mixes. And if you've seen impatiens in the landscape, you'll see impatient mixes are very popular. So we have hot mixes, rose pastel mixes, pro formula mixes. Anyway, that's new there. In the front, you'll see some marigolds, and we have several new things coming out in new marigolds. So last year we came out with Big Top, which is a big, kind of vigorous growing African marigold, and that's the one that's more in the middle of the picture there with the big flowers. And Big Top, actually these were, we put these in at Disney last year, and they were quite impressive. So they were new for last year, but I wanted to include them in the gardens this year. And we included 1 color, it's the Big Top Gold that you see. And the main thing here is the flower quality. It sheds the water off. And there were two other new marigold series I want to talk about. The one in the foreground, right in front of the Big Top Gold, is a new one that's going to be called Endurance. And growers can get this, and people can get this next year in small kind of trial quantities. We didn't have a full release, but this series is called Endurance. And this is a triploid. This is a cross between a French marigold and an African marigold. It's totally sterile. It doesn't put on seed, really loves the heat, and it's day neutral, so you can bloom these things throughout the year. Normally, marigolds will bloom when the days are shorter, and as you go into the summer, they can get rather big before they go into bloom. But when you have day neutrality, you can grow these things and have them bloom without getting these monster plants. So that's Endurance. It gets about 15, 18 inches in the garden. It's this triploid French African marigold cross. And the last one that's not in the gardens this year, the Florida trial gardens, is a new one called Happy Day. And it's the new little French marigold. If you see the series out there called Hot Marigolds or Janie or Little Hero, it's in that class of French marigolds. That's what you see in all the stores when you want to buy marigolds here in Florida in the summer. Loves the heat, day neutral, blooms quickly, and the Happy differentiates itself with some of the other competitors by getting a little bit more vigor in the landscape. But again, it is still a dwarf marigold. And then just to wrap up some of the others, you'll see on the left some salvia, and we had last year introduced and revamped a whole new series called Mojave Salvia, and there's 5 colors. Of course, red's the most important, or the scarlet, but there's purple. I included the salmon and the white in this one. And then over on the right, the other couple of series I want to talk about, you'll see celosia, and there's lots of other breeders that are including celosia this year because it's a great heat tolerant plant. And this one from us is called Bright Spark celosia. We came out with it a couple of years ago, and I travel all over North America, and I was just totally impressed when I saw this. So I wanted to get the Bright Sparks into the trial Florida gardens this year. And it's an intermediate size with great branching, and these things will just continue to build and grow throughout the summer. And then the last species I'll talk about, and then I'll just quickly go through the pictures, is in the far right corner there. It's right next to the red salvia, and that's our Sriracha Kufia. We have 4 colors, and brand new is a new bicolor called Lavender Bicolor, and that's what's in the garden. And again, Kufia loves the heat. So these are all really good heat tolerant plants, I'd say, except, the Aymara impatiens. They can all take and do very well in full sun. So I'll just kind of quickly go through. I think Linda took some close-ups. So There's some of the salvia, the impatiens, the red star Aymar in full sun. It's getting a little warm and bright for impatiens. Those would do better in shade or part shade. In the upper right corner of this picture is that lavender bicolor Sriracha Kufia. There's some of the salvia. Below is the new Cora Apricot, the new color in the Cora XDR. This shows the big top marigold. On the far right is the bright spark celosia, and it's the burgundy. And this one is the real highlight in that series. It's just outstanding, and it just continues to put blooms of color on. It's got that bronzy foliage. The up above is the Mojave Scarlet in these 4 salvia colors. And the real breeding breakthrough of the Mojaves and why we update it is the flowers last forever, what they call the corolla in the throat of the flower. And you can see that even on small plants. And if these plants are continued to fertilize and get water, they'll size up. But the flowers just last forever. You can even see these small plants are loaded with blooms, which a lot of salvia, they would be shedded away and all you'd have would be sticks. So again, just some highlights. This is the marigold, and this picture is the Endurance marigold. And the real highlight of those 3 colors, there's an Endurance gold, yellow, and this one I included is called Sunset Gold. And when temperatures get a little cooler as you'd move into the fall, you'll see a lot of fall marigolds here in the South. It gets this red tinge color into the gold, and that's why they call it Sunset Gold. But it's a real breakthrough with triploid breeding of marigolds. French crossed with African marigolds. And there's the last picture, and you can kind of see all the varieties. This is from the Orange County Extension Gardens. See the marigolds, the Aymar, red star in front, bright spark salvia, celosia, and then some of the salvia and vinca kufia in the back. And that's it, Bob. I hope everyone could hear me okay.
Yes, sir, loud and clear. As I mentioned before, my wife and I walked through the gardens, and when we're 100 feet away, we could see fire in the middle of the garden. I said, okay, we're going to look at all these plants, but I have to know what is that. And it was certainly the celosia bright sparks red. So someone wants some drama in the garden, that is a one warm color. And the gardeners did a great idea, plan to get near the Endurance marigold that is just brilliant yellow. So those 2 things combined were a shocking contrast. So someone's looking for some drama, some warm colors in the garden. Those are some great choices. But also that kufia. So again, my wife, I pay attention to what she likes and what she goes over towards. And the kufia was elsewhere in the gardens and some containers at Harry P. Lou. And every time she saw it, she says, what's that again? I like that. Let's grow that. So if you're looking for feminine, dainty, fine textured beauty, that kufia, lavender bicolor is a neat idea.
Yeah, well, hopefully they all kind of get through the heat of the summer. That's why I picked these, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully we can get out and view these plants.
Sure enough. And again, we'll track their progress on FNGLA's website. So as mentioned before, some of the plants are young and immature. That's right. They've only been planted for about a month or so. So stay tuned, folks, to watch the progress of these plants and see how they perform long term. Linda, do we have any other breeders that were able to join us?
No, you've completed your a list of breeders this morning, so thank you. Thank you to all the breeders.
All right. Again, plant breeders, we appreciate you going through our technical issues today. But when you go to the FNGLA website, you'll see those squares of the breeder showcase. You click on those, you'll see a longer presentation and some really good photographs of the plants and descriptions. So if you didn't have a chance to watch the extended version, that's where you find it. Also, we'll post trial evaluations and a weekly photo gallery of when they're planted and their progress. to show all the varieties and a digital version of the annual trial booklet too. As we wrap things up, I want to recognize my fellow members of FNGLA's Floriculture Committee, our chairman, Victor Gonzalez with Berger, Kathy Dubel with Sepra Landscape, Brad Bethurum with Brad's Bedding Plants, Eric Songderoth and Robert Bowden with Harry P. Lou Gardens, Kimberly Lowe with Manatee Schools, Laura Corrigan and Melissa Shepard with Walt Disney World, and Tony Turton with Color Burst. Now that you've seen some plants you'd like to try, where do you buy them? Each breeding company is listed with contact information, so you wholesale growers can communicate with them. And they'll tell you whether they sell direct or through a broker organization. Garden center companies and landscape contractors can contact their favorite wholesale grower to request these plants in season. And home gardeners can contact their local garden centers for these plants. That's why you need to take notes. What was the name of that plant again? Ask for them by name. And some nationwide chains do carry a few of these plants by name. But also consider your local independent garden centers as another great source for plants ideal for your local environment and helpful information. In conclusion, you've heard several sincere, heartfelt salutations lately. Be safe, be careful, stay healthy. But I'd like to add a new 2-word salutation with many benefits. Step outside. Thank you.